Hello, world. I'm Prince the Culture Keeper. I work to sustain the world's most beautiful and most enduring cultures, particularly Afro descendant, Indigenous, and Latina cultures and communities. Today, we are learning from fellow culture keeper, fellow veteran, Bernard Mendez. Bernard, how you doing today?
I'm doing great, man. How are you?
I'm well, brother. It's good to see you
Good
always.
to see you too.
Okay, please share with us who you are and what experiences have made you who you are. Take as much time as you need.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Well, really, I feel like my story really began at a really young age. I'd have to say that who I am. I'm a Latino. I'm a tech nerd, and I'm a military veteran. And to dive a little bit deeper, yeah, my story began pretty young. I was 11 years old when I first started programming. So I programmed my first website, HTML, and the reason was growing up, I'm a first generation American. My parents were from Mexico. And growing up, to put it lightly, we didn't really have much. So, like, all my friends at school had like the cool skateboards and the cool toys and all these things. And so, what I started doing was learning how to program at the school computer and creating websites with like images of the skateboards and the toys and pretty much all the stuff that I kind of wish I had in real life. I can enjoy it physically, but I could at least create like a digital representation and digital images of these things. And as a kid, that's kind of empowering. And it's kind of funny because my teachers didn't know what I was doing. My parents didn't know what I was doing. I didn't really know what I was doing. I just knew that if I put these like letters and numbers in the right combination, I could get all my favorite toys up on the screen, and I could at least enjoy them that way. And then fast forward a few years, I'm 16 in high school. Programmed my first video game. It was like a multiplayer tank game where half luck, half skill. So you could pick like an auto rotating turret that would shoot, and then you would control the tank. And then yeah, multiplayer, so multiple people could kind of go in there and play around with a little tank. So yeah, so I've always kind of been a tech nerd grown up, and then I went to college on a military scholarship. So I was Army ROTC, went to Illinois Institute of Technology, and then that's kind of like, how would I put it, another microcosm of tech nerds there too, right? So a very small engineering school in Southside Chicago, and then once I graduated from there, joined the military, spent my first year in Korea with Big Army, and then after that, spent most of my time with First Special Forces Group. So, when you're like jumping out of airplanes and fast roping out of helicopters and stuff, it's not cool to be, a tech nerd anymore. The Army kind of beat the nerd out of me. And it wasn't until I was getting out that I started looking back at tech and, the stuff I used to do as a kid. And so I ended up working at Amazon as a PM there in downtown Seattle, started drinking from the fire hose and learning all the AI stuff. And then after some time there, I branched off and I'm in the startup world now. So I'm involved in a few different startups, mostly AI based. Uh, yeah, just trying to really help figure out, where we can build community, build some really cool products. We're doing some stuff on the medical space with AI, some really life saving stuff that I'm really excited to kind of push out. And then some stuff on the defense space too, with like cybersecurity, communications, and just really securing our infrastructure. Especially with all the conflicts going on in the world.
That's awesome. I love hearing your story. Each time I learn more and more. I've got two follow-up questions for you, Bernard, on those points. First, where is your family from in Mexico? And second, you were in the metaverse before the metaverse, like you were literally building. So
NFTs.
what's
I
your
like to think it was like NFTs way back then. Yeah.
But please tell us a little bit about your family history in the region of Mexico you guys are from.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a really small place. It's out in the middle of the desert, in between the state of Durango and Coahuila. It's called Torreon. Um, it's life's pretty tough over there, and I think it does. It grows tough people and tough family bonds, and that was something that I really got to see growing up. Being first gen and growing up there in South Texas, we would travel back to Mexico quite often. So I spent pretty much every summer and winter down there with grandparents and kind of doing all the chores and that kind of stuff. But then also like partaking in all, all the holidays and all the amazing tamales and pozole and there's all the food that was like out of control. That like as an adult now, I wish I could go back just for a few hours to just really pig out and eat everything.
Yes.
Um, which I got to do last Christmas, so that was great. But it's not like before, as a kid growing up, you don't really realize a lot of things. And something that really stuck with me was, you know, we have so much here in America, and as a kid, you notice it, maybe not as much as an adult, but I remember going back there and, there's no like hot water, right? And it's something that in America you take for granted, where it's like, oh, it's cold outside, it's night, it's December, and I want to take a hot shower or whatever. And then over there, it's like, no, you're taking a cold shower, and it was just, it really opened my eyes, thinking like, wow, I'm so lucky to have been born in the U.S. And then now as an adult, I feel so lucky to have experienced those experiences as a kid, to have gone to Mexico for months at a time and really like learn the culture, learn the language, and just really see like where we come from.
That's beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. And it really is those like childhood memories of food and water and landscape, right? That we take with us and they really become the basis of how we interact with the world, right? So thank you for sharing that, Bernard. I'm gonna ask you a meta question before I dive into
Right.
all the cool cybersecurity and the med tech stuff I want to ask you about. Um, how do you define culture? Like, what is culture to you? And define it as abstractly or concretely as you like.
Yeah, that's a great question, man. And I think it's different for everyone, but I feel like it has to do with community and something I'm always kind of advising people and telling myself too. It's about finding your. That could be kind of anything, right? It could be, your ethnic background. It could be even like where you went to school. It could even be like your favorite football team or whatever. But I think it has to do with yeah. Where is your sense of community? Where's your tribe? And how do you help foster that community or that group? How do you help build people up? How do you help bring attention to those? And just try to make a positive impact in the world.
I love that. Just to recap, you said community. I heard belonging, right? And I also heard you say fostering, contributing, right? It's not just a place where you can just be in a culture and just exist, right? But you contribute to it and you actively like, be in conversation with the elements and the people around you. I love that definition. Now I'm going to ask you personally in your work and also as your person, how do you keep culture and what cultures do you keep?
Yeah, it's another good question, man, and it's something that I've kind of, especially the last few years, I've been trying to define for myself and just really like put the work out there too. Um, I would say, of course, my background as a Chicano is obviously big Latino and that culture and just always trying to give back to that community. And especially like my family, Mexican family, so it's huge. Lots of cousins, and lots of uncles, aunts, and everything. And I'm always trying to see, where we can grow together and kind of build each other up. And then that's something, whether it's like, trying to invest in some of their businesses or trying to bring them onto to something I'm working on, or just always trying to like up the line there, especially because we have so good here in America, and it's financially so much tougher in these other countries that whatever lending hand we can do, I think it's important to do that. And then another culture that I would say another one of my tribes is definitely the military veteran tribe or military active duty, and that's something that I take pretty seriously. I was mentoring for Veterati for a bit. I know they just unfortunately had their got shut down. But that's something that I still kind of actively do, whether it's on LinkedIn that people find me or I find people. And it's something that I've gotten a lot of help too, honestly, um, from veterans that have been there before me and that have mentored me. So it's something that I always try to pass back. And then something I'm doing now with one of the startups I'm a part of, Valorous, is we're kind of bringing in together a bunch of other military startups and military owned small businesses and then connecting them with primes and bigger task orders and bigger funding avenues or accelerators, and then trying to see where we can all kind of grow together. when I first started in the startup world, and startups will be like another one of my tribes, right? When I first started in the startup world, it was all about kind of like, oh, we're in stealth mode, we're keeping things secret, and we can't let them find out about our IP and this and that and whatever. And then now I'm the exact opposite, man. It's like tell everyone what you're doing. Obviously, you can't share some stuff, but for the most part, share as much as you can, and then build teams, bring in bigger teams, go after bigger contracts, go after bigger research, and just really partner as much as you can, and build those like mini tribes and mini communities to make more of an impact.
You know what? I've gotta amen that, man. I've been in entrepreneurial mode coming up 2 years. And you're right. I don't know what it is about, like, it's gotta be super secret. I'll tell you what did it for me, it was law school, right? Because in law school, we're learning about all the worst, right? All the worst things, when the IP was stolen, when the person ran away with the company, when da da da. But, like, those are the worst case scenarios, right? That as a lawyer, you're being trained to mitigate. That's not day-to-day SOP. That's not like normal, right? Like encounters for the most part. And you're right, by sharing and contributing, as you said, right? You build culture, you build community, and you like get more people on board and you get more done quicker. And it's true, you make so much more impact than you would just like hiding this thing under your pillow, hoping nobody finds it but the tooth fairy, right? It doesn't, it's counterintuitive, but
It is
all go through unlearning that, right, as entrepreneurs. So yeah, yeah,
100%, man, and yeah, I think you hit it right on the head. I think a lot of our lives were indoctrinated by maybe like the bad parts of what can happen, and we don't think about actually sharing and teaming creates a much better outcomes. And sometimes you're going to run into with the bad teams, you're going to get into bad partnerships, or some bad
right,
stuff's going to happen. That's okay, like cut that part off,
right.
take yourself off, and dust off, and then keep going, and find the good partner to make that positive change.
That's exactly right, and I just wanna share what one of my really good friends, asks me, Anna. I know Anna's gonna watch this. Anna, I'm thinking of you. She always asks, "What's the best that could happen?" Right? Like, totally reframing the way you're thinking about it, and she just asks this wild question, "Okay, what's the best thing that could happen?" Right? And then once you start thinking positively, right, you, like, bring it to you, really.
I
Yeah.
love that, by the way. I love that. What's the best that could happen?
Yes,
Yeah.
that can happen. Absolutely. And even in a bad situation, the best thing that can happen can be you're not my business partner. Like, cool. Like, I rather learn that now, right, than learn it too late or learn it under other
Hmm.
circumstances. So, yeah, sometimes that,
100%.
yeah, yeah. I love this, man. Okay. But I want to ask you, you mentioned investing in businesses like family businesses. I will tell you in this culture keeping work, Bernard, I typically find that a lot of people of color, right, Afro descendant, indigenous, Latinx people, we oftentimes fund and like start found businesses that meet a need in our community, right? And then we scale it upward. So I want to know, like, and you don't have to get particular on particular kinds of businesses, but please tell me just in general, what kinds of business ideas have you encountered as not just an entrepreneur yourself, right? And a founder, but as an investor that really meet cultural needs. I'm curious about those opportunities and I want to uplift those on the Culture Keepers.
Yeah, yeah, great question. Well, my background's more obviously military and big tech and tech startups. And so what I've done is try to bring in, obviously family members wherever it makes sense, where I can bring in as team members or anything like that. But one that I'm very particular about, and we haven't officially launched, but it is actually in the fashion world. So I have two cousins back in Mexico. They're like fashion geniuses. Like they do a lot of cosplay. They do a lot of like the Halloween. They always have like the crazy cool outfits, and
Yeah.
they do it all themselves. My mom gave them a sewing machine and everything, and they've learned how to make like their own patterns, and they're like literally making these amazing outfits. And I just couldn't help but think like, wow. I feel like there's something there. Like they're obviously passionate about it. They're doing it anyway. How can I maybe, bring in a little bit of funding, get something started, but how can we do it right as well? So I'm looking at people who do have professional masterminds. It's still small businesses, but how can I maybe put them in an apprenticeship under these contexts that I have them learn and grow, and then maybe we all make a business together and actually go like all out, like market it, bring in the sales funnel, like actually do it big. So it's just things like that where if I see a family member or a close friend that's got like a really big passion project or something that they're obviously good at, there's talent. Um, but you also have to start small, right? Like you can't just give everyone everything or just start everything big. You got to really like do it in stages. Aside from that, I'm invested in an application. It hasn't come out yet, but it should be on the App Store pretty soon, and I'm excited for it to come out. It's dealing with mental health. So we'll use AI and like gamification and these cool 3D models that talk to you back that you could do meditations with, that you could just really improve a lot of mental health outcomes. So it's things like that that I'm also very interested in. And then of course I'm invested in some of the medical. One of I think it's just super important, and there's there's a lot of personal reasons with like family members that have gone through health things where I just see that AI can really change the game when it comes to healthcare, and there's no reason that we don't have these things right now. I mean, the technology's there. I mean, really, it's just the adoption curve hasn't been. I guess it's faster, but we're really looking to change that here pretty soon.
Yeah, awesome. Your audio cut out a little bit, but I heard like medical technology, right? Med tech is something that you're super passionate about and something that
Yeah, yeah, 100%. I think it's super important. I mean, we could save lives this year with AI, and
you.
it's just not there yet. Like
Mm,
the adoption isn't there yet. Like the technology is there, is what I'm saying,
right.
but the adoption isn't there. And don't even get me started on the U.S. medical system because that's probably part of the issue.
Yeah, that's a whole different show. But I know just from our previous conversations, our sentiments are probably aligned in seeing the very strange drivers of that system that are not necessarily our well-being. So definitely availing technologies, right, that are democratizing, that are becoming more affordable for the end of helping keep people alive and feeling better and moving better, is very admirable, Bernard. It's something I've always loved about your work and your portfolio.
Yeah,
Um,
thank you.
Now the fashion, if you care to shout them out or if they have an Instagram page or cousins, like, please share it. I would love to give them a little bit of press.
So unfortunately, not yet.
Okay.
All of that is still in the works. It's all super
Okay.
early, but it's something that I've kind of, yeah, I'm excited because I really want to do it big though. Like I really want to, I want to get them, and I want to do it the right way. Like put them in an apprenticeship or something first, so they can really like dip their toes and see if it's really what they want to do professionally or not, and then really set up those systems for them. Actually start getting that name out, but when it is ready, I'll definitely I'll share. I'll send some your way for sure.
Please do. And you know what? Let's bring them on the show. I wouldn't mind them. They're culture keepers as well, obviously. So I would love to
Great
have.
point.
So yeah, I'd
That's a
love it.
great point.
Yeah. Um, okay. Who do you do your work in honor of?
Yeah. So, yeah, that's a really good question, man. I think some of the stuff we're doing in the entertainment space, doing in honor of, like the childhood version of me. I think when I was building those websites and to build these virtual worlds, or just get the story out there and just do things virtually that you can do in real life. So I think of we're building a software that people can use to create movies and video games and storyboard everything from storyboard to like production management to then actual Unreal Engine, in-game graphic stuff. And so for that example, I think of uh, how many Steven Spielbergs are out there in third world countries that don't have the ability to get their story out there or to create these works of arts, and how can we empower them to like get out there to come up with something that eventually with the power of AI will rival like AAA game studios and major movie studios. As much as it scares them, I mean the truth is that's pretty much what's coming. Like AI will democratize content creation, and that's something that I've invested a lot of my money into and a lot of my time, and we're spinning up a whole startup there, VP Genie, to do exactly that. And then on the medical side, it's really personal experiences that I've had with my family members, whether it's my mom or my grandma, and my grandparents, and so there's so many things that have happened in the medical system that didn't need to happen, and treatments that could have been started earlier, and diagnoses that could have been done earlier, and so that really drives me on the medical side. That's why I've put in a lot of my money in there too, and a lot of my time and energy does go into either fundraising or building product for that, or helping push the ball a little bit on the development side. It's something that, like I said, we've got the technology now. We have AI that can save lives now, and the adoption just isn't there yet. It's just not being used. There's obviously a lot of legal hurdles, regulations, and stuff like that. But I mean, that really shouldn't stop progress that's this important. It's like life changing for so many people in the medical space.
That's right. Do you want to tell us about the medical stuff in particular? What is it that you're working on? What are other areas that you're just generally interested in and that you feel is a need that people need to invest in for our well-being?
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of our biggest pushes right now, we're working with University of Rochester, so this company called Retinas that I've been a partner and an investor in as well. And we're partnered with the University of Rochester doing breast cancer detection using ultrasound technology. So they've got these really cool portable ultrasounds that are coming out. Butterfly's probably the most famous brand, but there's a bunch of other brands out there. We're not really associated with the hardware, but we do the software. So what makes our software different is we're using the mobile chipset. So whether it's the A15 to the A18 to the M1 or M2, we're using an iPad or an Android device or whatever, we're running the AI off that mobile chipset. So instead of having to have internet connectivity in the internet, we're able to run all the inference on device. And well, what does that mean? It means that we can get this life-saving technology up to rural areas or out to third world countries. So right now we're exploring, obviously, Latin America is one option. We're looking to partner with people in India and then also the African continent as well, to see where we can get this out. And I spent time in Africa with the military as well, and there are times when internet or power goes out, and it's out for like a while. And if we've got a medical device that you can run off battery on device, where the AI lives on the device, and you don't need that connectivity, we could still improve outcomes in places like that. So right now, that's kind of my big push on fundraising for retinas right now. We aim to be, long term vision is let's be that big imaging diagnostic AI company that really helps doctors diagnose earlier, helps patients understand what's going on with them and their conditions, and then eventually running like predictive analytics. Once data set's big enough, and help people know when they're starting to get sick or when they're showing signs of it. But in the near term, I think it's as far as the fundraising goes, I think it's a very important mission because we can get this life saving tech out there to those third world countries that need it. And call it what it is. A lot of the big players aren't going after that market. Focus on like the big U.S. forces. We think, I mean, that's great. Like these people need the help too, so let's go help them. And so that's something that I've invested my money and a lot of my time and energy into. And like I said, I am actually fundraising for Redditors right now too. So any people out there that believe in that mission, that want to help push medical AI for all, then yeah, please send them my way, of course.
Awesome, Bernard. I also want to go back to the other thing that you said that we've also bonded over. Me as an emerging filmmaker, right, and particularly, right, culturally focused films. Films, my particular genre of film is folklore, right, mythology and folklore in particular. And I just think about all of the superheroes we grew up with, right, that, are like cult followings, like, oh my gosh, love Batman, like all these major superheroes, but how there's such a proliferation of superheroes and protagonists and experiences and video games and media that are reflecting, right, Afro, Latina, indigenous culture, but they're coming from only a few places, right? And so really what you're doing, by investing in this kind of technology is, like you said, democratizing content creation, democratizing filmmaking, I'm thinking, and even just allowing like people from communities to create their own, right, their own experiences, their own passions, their own figments of their imagination or expressions of their culture and tradition. And I just want to hear more about that. About, have you encountered many people doing this work? How far are you along? Is there any particular product or suite of products you want to mention? I leave that open to you, but I would love to hear you talk about just the sector and the growth of what's possible in entertainment.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think a lot of it has to do with storytelling, right? And storytelling is so important and so impactful in human psychology for I mean for thousands of years, right? It's how we've kind of told our story and kept the culture too.
Right.
And you're right. Right now, it's very monopolized. Like there's certain brands that own all the intellectual property and reskin all the same everything. You know what I mean? I mean, yeah. And so, uh, how do we kind of break that? How do we break that system in a positive way and allowing indie content creators to really start breaking into the scene? I think the internet, YouTube, all these other platforms have already kind of started doing that. But then how do we use AI to really increase? If you let me share a screen, I'll share something real quick.
Sure.
Um,
There we
share a
go.
little bit about what we're building there with VP Genie, Virtual Production Genie. Let me see. So it's a multi-part. So we've got, the fancy part where you're in the studios generating like 3D content on these LED volumes. We've
Mhm.
got the production management portion, and then we've got the storyboarding where people are able to actually,
Mm,
start creating their own stories. And the cool thing about this is this is a new technology. So it's the LED volumes instead of green screen. So you're able to see everything projected, on screen.
mhm.
So it's not like green screen where everything then is post edit. And not only do we have like image generation and all that stuff, but right here, this is a perfect example of what we're talking about. So the old school is this green screen. The new school is the LED volumes, and it just really changes the game for everyone involved. Whether it's the director behind the camera, whether it's the actors in front, the actors can see the world that they're in instead of it all being green or blue. The directors can actually see, how the camera's positioned. They're using classic camera techniques, and then all of this is synced through Unreal Engine or some other virtual production engine. It's the same engine used for video games. And so what we've done is kind of change the game and allow you to create 3D models out of images references. Like here we have, this pumpkin character created into a 3D model. And then, here's like an example of a chair. And then even taking images and creating what we call 2.5D. So it's a displacement map where you take an image and you kind of add in certain layers to it. And so we're using AI to build all of these things to allow future filmmakers to just create scenes much quicker, much faster. And then we also have the whole previs portion where I'll share that real quick, uh, where people are able to really just start taking concepts and then turning that into, let me share this here, taking concepts and then turning it into an entire shot list even.
Mm,
So including, storyboards, your locations, your characters, and just really helping you create, any kind of story. And then once you're done creating your previs, your virtual art department stuff, then we go to the production management part of the tool. How do you use what you've built to pitch these, producers to actually make this real, right? How do you get your budget and your cost and your amount, your characters, your crews, connect all of these pieces to where, as a small team, you're able to make some really big moves like the studios do. So yeah, once again, it's really about helping indie creators and obviously there's the B2B play too, where studios can use this now to help them with their productions and everything. It's not like we're going against the studios or anything,
right.
but I'm most excited about the indie creator and that future Steven Spielberg that's like somewhere in Africa or somewhere in South America or Asia that hasn't had the ability to really get their story out there, but that has the most amazing imagination and stories to tell.
That's incredible. I can't imagine. I mean, I've done some green screen stuff in my day, but imagining just seeing it so I don't have to bump into stuff and like trip over just green matter everywhere is pretty awesome and pretty like common sense. So in advance, thank you for investing and helping create something so practical that really has meaning for everyone, especially the culture keepers among us, right?
Oh,
Um,
absolutely. We just started some pilot programs with some film schools and video game schools down in Mexico. And we're going to extend that here in America as well. But it's something that I think, I'm trying to get them as long of access as I can. And trying to work out some deals, right? Let's hook the students up. Let's get them
yeah,
like some sort of discount. Let's get them something to where they can actually use this and really start building on their dreams. So think that's
yeah,
something that's important, and just trying to figure out how to make it work with the business model and everything. And but yeah, I mean that's where I think it can really make the most impact, especially long term.
that's awesome. I'm curious to chat with you about it offline. Maybe we're talking about a lab or something. And I would love to come down to Mexico and see like what everyone's doing, right? What the students are doing with their incredible imaginations.
Oh, absolutely. We'll be having some events in Chicago and LA as well, so I'll definitely shoot you an invite for those.
Please do, and I'm also down for the international trip as well, man. I wanna get
Let's
some
do it.
the stamps this year, so
Yeah, let's do it. Let's do it.
thank you. Okay, my next question is, what urgent concerns is your cultural community facing right now, and what do you think are some solutions for that? And I mean that in the biggest way.
Yeah, I think a lot of it is probably I mean, once again, tied to health, and I think education is probably another big piece for both, the Latino community and then also the military community. Honestly, I feel like health and education for both, for both of my communities there, uh, and I think a lot of it on the health side has to do with specifically nutrition. Honestly, not only like diagnosing diseases and treatments, but I think nutrition has gone, very poorly for both of those cultures, military and Latino roots. It's how do we go back to things that worked for our ancestors, right? The foods that were cleaner and better, and it's just it almost feels like we're getting poisoned like on purpose with all the crap that's out there food wise and like processed food and everything else. And why is that food subsidized? And why is like farming getting changed and everything else. I mean, it's pretty crazy what's going on. But I think that's a big one. And then another one is just education. We kind of streamline or fix the education system, right? Like where are people still getting hazed doing some college stuff? And by hazed, I mean like I don't know, taking gen eds when they're not ever going to use that stuff, and they should be focusing on whatever field they're actually going into. And maybe we get them out into the workforce 2 years earlier or a year and a half, something. But yeah, I think those would probably be the two main ones to be medical, specifically nutrition, and education.
I just juxtaposed, right, the bookends of your answers when I first asked you about, culture and like what cultures you keep. And the first thing that you mentioned was food, right? Food from Mexico, food from home. And now one of the biggest crises that our communities are facing is food, right? We were people that grew our own food. You talk about like, alimentary sovereignty, right? Food sovereignty, that grew our own food and were even sometimes forced to labor for other people's foods. But it was still fresh, it was still organic, it was still grown from the ground. But now to be in a crisis where we don't own or have any sovereignty or control over any part of the supply chain of anything that we consume, is a really big problem, and it's something that I know Goldwater Ventures, right, and the Culture Keepers are really thinking about for indigenous communities to reintroduce, right, in 21st century ways, right? There are really cool ways to
Right.
farm and garden and stuff, right, using technology, using AI, using IoT, right, but really doing it in a way where it's a little bit of old and a little bit of new, but we're not we're continuing the tradition of our ancestors. It's not just growing it exactly how they grew it in exactly the same spot, right? It isn't mimicry, but it's food sovereignty, right? It is this idea that we control what we consume and we are healthy because we know what we're consuming and we know what we produce. So I just wanted to amen that in my own words. I couldn't let that.
Yeah.
Um,
No,
yeah,
I love that, man. And any way I could help support what you're doing there, I would love to. I know some people here in Hawaii that are interested in the same thing. How do you grow food here on island their ancestors used to grow, and just what you said, how to use technology like IoT to really increase the yields and but still keeping with that like traditional and healthy, more organic food source. So maybe there's even some alignments here with some of those people that I'd love to put you in contact and to see where where we can expand that.
Bernard,
That's
that would
important
be
too.
amazing. Yeah, that'd be amazing. I totally welcome that. And Hawaii is a particular place of interest for me. You know, when we say indigenous people, we're including Native American Pacific Islanders, right? Which includes the Pacific Islands, of course.
Yep.
And Hawaii is just such a special, beautiful place with such a very recent disruption of their cultural life, but the will of Hawaiians are very strong. Every time I meet Hawaiians, at different conferences I go to or different events, like I just love Hawaiian energy and spirit. What a beautiful place to live in. And you're always, as I was saying at the head of the call, you're always like somewhere where I want to be. The
Yeah.
background is just always flawless. And I'm like, damn, is that CGI or is that real?
It's a blessing, man. Yeah, it's I thank my lucky stars every morning. I wake up and I walk on the grass and I pick a flower and I say, "Wow, how did I get here?" Like from the ghetto border town in South Texas to this place. I'm like, "Wow, I really need to help the next generation too, and help other people get out here too, or wherever it is that makes them happy." But that's that I think that's pretty important.
Yes.
And there's so many avenues of doing it too. That's something that I've been thinking about for a while. Is there's a few nonprofit ideas spinning around my head constantly for the last 7 years. Probably topic for a whole nother conversation because I've got whole other life stories that kind of have driven those. But
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, that's kind of what it's all about, right? It's how do we help the next generation to where they've got at least like a step or two above the ladder than we had, and then where they can take their
Yeah, 100%. My final question for you, Bernard, because you've been so generous with your time and with your thoughts and ideas and your life work. How can we support your culture keeping efforts? You mentioned a number of things that you're working on and invested in and doing, but please tell us how we, our listeners, and other culture keepers can support you as a fellow culture keeper in your work.
Yeah, no, yeah, great question. I mean, I think really, I'd love to hear what you and the community are doing, and just more so see where any of the tools that any of my teams have built can help you guys out, or where we can do any mutual outreach or alignments in that way. So if you have productions or some of the teams you're working with on the agricultural side, I'm more than happy to make connections there, or even see where I can come in and consult a bit and help you guys out pro bono, of course, or just seeing where we can all grow together. Really, I think I really believe in that the karma, specifically like the startup karma, right? They call it, where you help
Yeah.
other people out and then the help comes back. I mean, I feel like that's literally what's been happening, and I kind of changed my whole life last 3 years. After going through some crazy ups and downs with the startup, finding a lot of success and then a lot of failure, and then success again, then failure, and it's like the roller coaster kind of never ends. But how do you help people when you're on the upward, and then minimize damages on the downward, and then just keep doing that, and over time, everyone's kind of building each other up.
That's exactly right. I'm more than willing to help share and give as well. You're right. Like when you're doing what you love, I mean, honestly, I could say that this is the first time in my life I'm doing exactly what I feel like I was meant to do. And like that's kind of scary that every day it could totally change, right? I'm working on something now and then I get another client in a month from now, my life is totally different, or I got to move somewhere for a couple months and do a project. But we love the excitement, right? We're used to moving, especially as vets. But doing things that really matter for people that really matter. And, Bernard, my heart is really with connecting everyone, but in particular, healing relationships between peoples of color. Right? We have often not hurt each other, but been collectively hurt. And so really doing things that like mend those relationships across borders and grow capacity, right? To return us to some, level of sovereignty and self-determination and happiness is like really important. And the fact that you get to build all these cool tech tools that have immediate applicability for people's like literally their lives every day, from the food that they're eating to the medical care that they receive to the media that they consume to the education that they get. Bernard, you are a culture keeper. So I want to thank you so much for being on the Culture Keeper Circle. And we will see you soon, I'm sure.
Yeah, absolutely, and thanks a lot for the work you're doing too, man. This is important because if you don't get that story out, people never. Sometimes you don't even know what's out there, right? Like growing up, I didn't know, that any of this was possible. I mean, I didn't have any examples or anything like that. Your work is super important, man. I think if it goes back to storytelling, right? If you don't get the story out there, people might be hamstrung or people might not dream as big, and really it should be the opposite because we need to get more story out there, we need to get more people connected, we need to get people helping people within the tribes and within the culture, because it's different when the person that's helping you came from a similar place that you're at and looks like you, right? Well, I mean, let's just be real about it, whereas like, you know it just adds that extra dimension in that human form that people can better understand, especially younger people, right?
Right.
It's something that I feel can make a big difference. So thank you for all the work you're doing.
Thank you, man. I really appreciate that, Bernard. We'll catch up with you soon, okay?
All right, brother. We'll see you, man.
Thanks.